Hello and good afternoon. I want to welcome you to Family Power Hour. My name is Yilma Hetz, and I'm from the Office of Family and Community Engagement. If you need Spanish interpretation, please wait till you see the globe icon that will be located at the bottom of your screen. When you see the globe icon, click the icon and select Spanish. We will give you a few seconds to do so.
Buenas tardes. Les quiero dar la bienvenida a la hora virtual de empoderamiento familiar del Distrito Escolar de San Antonio. Mi nombre es Irma Hayes, de la Oficina de Compromiso Familiar y de la Comunidad. Si necesitan servicios de interpretación en español, esperen unos momentitos y en la parte inferior de su pantalla va a aparecer un globo con la opción para elegir español. Les vamos a dar unos momentitos para que lo haga quien lo necesite. Gracias.
So I want to thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to be with us today. I also want to be respectful of your valuable time, so we'll keep this workshop to under 1 hour. I will be today's workshop session entitled Understanding the Power of Positive Parenting. Now, to ensure we can communicate clearly with each other, let us do some quick Zoom pointers. The workshop will be recorded, so please feel free to turn your camera on or off, whichever you prefer. Your microphone has been muted, and that is to eliminate the background noise. If you have a question, please feel free to unmute yourself, place the question in the chat, or raise your hand using the participant feature at the bottom of your screen. At the end of the workshop, we will be placing a link in the chat so you can sign in and complete a quick evaluation. With that being said, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and we'll begin the workshop. So we're going to be discussing today the power of positive parenting. So I like this post by Miss Carly. She's a mommy. I found it on the web, and she states, "They say it takes a village to raise a child, but where can I get the directions to the village, right? It takes a whole group of people, educators, families, extended families, parents, to raise a child, but guess what? There's really no clear direction on how to raise a child because all our children are very different." I'm going to show you a quick video. I thought it was a very good video as far as the power of parenting. So let me stop sharing this, and then I'm going to share the video with you.
A great parent is not the one who gives the most money, not the one who gives the most toys, not the one who gives the best place to live. A great parent is the one who gives attention. To be a great parent, all you need to do is be present with your child. Not give presents, be present. That's all kids really want. They want you to notice them, to be loved, to be wanted. The best parent is the one whose eyes light up when their child enters the room. The parent who makes a promise to love unconditionally. The parent who leads by example. Not by what you say, but by what you do. Kids will never pay attention to your words. They will always and only pay attention to your actions and your intentions. A great parent works on themselves. A great parent makes their own mind strong, knowing their kids will likely follow in their footsteps. Heal yourself. Make your own mind strong, so your children can see the clearest example of what a great life looks like. Setting a clear and strong example of what type of human being you want your kids to become starts with you. It's up to you to set the example of kindness and compassion toward others, to set the example of what it is like to be yourself, to set the example of living a magical life that you choose. That's what a great parent does. Set their child free. Allow them to be themselves. Allow them to make their own decisions. Live your life in such a way that when your kids think of kindness, compassion, strength, authenticity, and real joy, they think of you. A great parent knows not to allow anything in their life they don't want their children to reproduce in their lives. That includes toxic relationships. That includes bad habits. That includes making decisions based on fear. A great parent listens. They don't lecture. A great parent supports, never shames. A great parent guides and sets free. Being a parent is not a job, it's a privilege. Being a parent is not a burden, it's a blessing. They are always watching. What kind of role model will you be for your children?
So parents, I want to get some feedback from you. You are also welcome to unmute yourself, place it in the chat. What were your thoughts about this video?
Irma,
Hi, Lisa.
sorry, I don't know where my camera is right now. No, I mean it's very tugs at the heartstrings. It kind of makes me feel bad sometimes about what I decide to do with, kids are just got home from work, like leave me alone. They're like, we want your attention. I'm like, I just can't give it to you right now. And so it makes me feel a little sad about it, but it also makes me want to rethink things, especially with like Christmas coming up and me, thinking, what do they need? What do they want? And, honestly for them, like they don't need more toys. Like they don't need more whatever. So trying to find some alternate things so that, I mean, I don't remember what my mother gave me at 3, they probably won't either, but, I don't know, just makes me rethink those things.
Ms. Rivera? Do you have any thoughts about the video? Okay.
My name is Sandra Rivera. I don't speak a lot of English, so I talk in Spanish. Yo creo que siempre los papás estamos preocupados si estamos haciendo un buen trabajo con nuestros hijos. Yo en lo particular tengo 3 hijas, 18, 15 y 12, que la que está más chica, que es la que tiene 12, es la que está conmigo aquí. Y muchas veces veo a mi hija que está triste o está estresada, sobre todo estos días, porque piensan que no están cumpliendo las expectativas de nosotros, de los maestros. Y si estamos aquí ahorita es porque queremos apoyarlos, que ellos se sientan apoyados, queridos y que no están solos, que nos tienen a nosotros para siempre que necesiten ayuda. Entonces, es increíble que podamos tener este tipo de apoyo también nosotros como papás. Gracias.
Muchas gracias, señora Rivera. So yeah, the video strikes a chord, but I like to show this video because this is what we all want to do for our children, right? But I'm here to tell you that we cannot always be everything to our child. And I think in today's society, when we're working, when we have other family obligations, and then now with remote learning, it's a challenge. It's a challenge, but it is possible. But I think we need to be really gentle with ourselves and to realize that we are human. We're only one person. And then like Ms. Rivera, who has 3 children, each one, like they say in Spanish, there's a saying, they're just as different like every finger. You can have 3 children, but they all have their own personalities. They have their own thoughts, their own ideas. So I want to start with that. So again, the video is a great video. Those are wonderful things that we can do as parents. But I'm here to tell you that if we do some of them, we're golden. Okay, so I'm going to go back to my PowerPoint and I'm going to share with you so we can continue with the presentation. So these are going to be our objectives today, what we're going to learn. And again, all of these things, they're nothing new. They're nothing out of the ordinary. They're things that you probably do already. But I think sometimes it's good to get a refresher and just maybe see it with a different lens. I know for myself, when I go to trainings, I always learn something. And just to let you know, I have a son who's 25 now, adopted him at 11. So a lot of these things that were in here, like I know professionally, but sometimes it's hard, like when you're face to face with your child, and I would forget some of those things as I was raising him. So let's go ahead and start with the objectives. We're going to speak briefly about what is positive parenting. What does that mean? That's a word that's used a lot into today. There is a lot of research on it from the CDC. There's parenting magazines. So we're going to talk briefly about what that means, positive parenting. We're going to also be talking about some of the effective parenting practices. What are some of the things that we can do as parents to be positive, to be effective, to encourage our children? And then I'm going to share some positive parenting tips. Now, these tips I have broken down into several age groups. So the first one would be the preschoolers. If you have little ones, and I think, I know Officer Montes doesn't have little ones, but Miss Julissa does. And then Miss Rivera said you have a 12, 15, and an 18-year-old. So we're going to go through the middle child. What are some of the tips on how to be a positive parent with your middle child, with your young teen, and your teenagers? Positive parenting. In a nutshell, based on Heather, I can never pronounce her last name, but it's Lozak. It's the idea of continual relationship between a parent and their child that includes caring, teaching, leading them, communicating with them, and providing their needs, the things that they need, doing it consistently, doing it the same way every time, and unconditionally. So no matter what they do, we're still the parents and we love them. That's positive parenting. It's a mouthful, but we're going to break it down here. These are some positive parenting things that I think are good for all ages, all grade levels. And you're going to see as I'm going through the different age groups, you're going to see a lot of these weaved in there. So one is setting boundaries. What does that mean? Setting boundaries, all it means is saying, you're telling your child, this is where it stops and this is where it starts. Kind of like your property fence, your property line. You know where it starts and ends, and you know where your neighbor's at. You know what to do and not to do. So we're setting boundaries for our children. Being firm, but also being loving. I know sometimes there's always discussion about physical discipline. Sometimes parents say, no, we want them just to be creative. We kind of let them do what they want. The best practice, and what I've seen in research, is kind of the middle ground. To be firm, again, setting those boundaries, but doing it in a loving way. Natural consequences, that's a big one. I think sometimes, I know in my experience, I would tell my child, don't do this, don't do that, don't do this. Did he listen when he was a teenager? Sometimes he did, sometimes he didn't. But I remember once, it was winter, it was cold. He was a freshman in high school. And I said, take a sweater. And he's like, nah, I don't need a sweater. I don't need a sweater. The mom in me was like, take the sweater, because I know when you get out there and you're waiting for the bus, it's going to be cold. And all these thoughts and ideas are going through my head. Then I remember, you know what? He's old enough. He's 14, he's 15. He needs to learn what the natural consequence is. So I said, fine, don't take a sweater. Walks out to the bus. After about 20 minutes, calls me and says, I'm really cold. Like, I need a sweater. I said, son, I'm sorry, but I'm already driving to work. That's just a natural consequence. So That's also very important for our children. So they learn, that's how they start learning what's right and what's wrong, what they need to do and not to do is by the consequence, right? The other one is positive reinforcement. When they do something well, when they do it good, we need to acknowledge them right away. And that doesn't just go for children. I think it goes for us as an adult. I know sometimes when I do a presentation or I do a project and I show it to my boss, and if she likes it, she's like, oh my God, that's great. I like the way you did this. I like the way you explained yourself. I like the way you were turned it in a timely manner. Guess what? Ooh, I just feel great. And guess what? I'm going to continue to do those things because she positively gave me reinforcement. She told me that I did something well and we want to continue. And that's kind of human nature. So it goes for children, but as well as adults. Model respect. Basically, that means the way you treat people, you're showing your child how they should be treating people. The way you treat yourself, when you take care of yourself, when you try to eat right, if you try to exercise, if you're on work on time, you do your job well, you're showing your child how you're respecting yourself and others. And that's the best way that I think, one of the best ways that our children learn is from what we do. Showing empathy, that's also a real big one. And we're going to go into detail about how to do that. But showing empathy basically means you're showing your child how to care about other people. When other people are maybe sick, when other people are sad, when other people need help, you're teaching them to see that and to understand that and to, like they say, their heart goes out to them. So showing empathy is a really, really good way of helping your child grow to be a successful individual. So these are some of the practices. So I kind of went into detail. I'm going to go into a little bit more detail here, but one way of good practice is to respond to your child in a very predictable way. When we talked about positive parenting in the slides before, we talked about consistency. We need to make sure that we try our hardest. If what we say is yes or what we say no, there's room for flexibility, but we need to be consistent with what we say and also with what we do. For example, if you tell your middle age child, your 12-year-old, you know what? The TV is turned off at 9 o'clock during school nights. Now, will there be times where there's a special show on or the presidential elections, they want to see what happened? There's room for flexibility, but for the most part, we need to be consistent. And if it's 9 o'clock during school nights, we need to continue with that consistency because children really need, even the teenagers, they do really well and they need consistency. They need to know what's going to happen. It gives them a sense of security. The same thing with actions. So if you drive and you don't want to put your seatbelt, you put it on sometimes you don't. Your child sees that. But what we need to show them is that every time we get in the car, we're going to put our seatbelt on. So they need to know that your actions are the same, that they're predictable and they're consistent, right? And again, parents, please don't beat yourself up if sometimes it falls by the wayside. Again, life happens and that's okay. The other one is sharing books and talking with your child. I know a lot of times as parents, we do this when they're very young. We read with them at bedtime or if they have homework and the teacher says, read 5 minutes. So we tend to do that a lot when our children are very young. But the other thing is, I think as our children grow, maybe your 15-year-old Miss Rivera is not going to want to sit and read with you. I don't know. If she does, perfect. But sometimes as they get a little older, they're trying to find their independence. So they might not really want to read with you. But the way you can counter that is asking them, mija, mijo, what are you reading? What do you like to read? So always making reading part of a conversation that you have with your child. Again, when they're little, we read to them, they read to us. They're a little bit older, they're not going to really want to read with us. If they do, great. If they don't, ask them, what are you reading? What are you learning? What do you find interesting about this book or this article or this magazine? So sharing books and talking with your child is very important. It's a great practice for positive parenting. Another one is to show warmth and be sensitive to your child. One of the things that we can do is just even to look at our child when we're speaking to them, just look them in the eyes and let them know. They'll know if you're listening or not. And it's very easy sometimes when we are busy and they are talking to us, and we could be, trying to pay a bill, trying to, cook something, and we're like, yeah, that's understandable. But what we're going to try to do is, even if it's for a brief second, look at your child and say, you know what, I'm in the middle of cooking. Give me a second, I'll be back with you. So, but always looking at them, that shows them that you care, it's warm, and you're being sensitive because they're wanting to say something to you. And so you're acknowledging them. Give affection. That's my favorite one. Again, when you're little, easy. Up to maybe 7 or 8 year olds, they still want to hug. You can hug them, pat them on the head, dale un besito, they're happy. Now, when they get a little bit older, it could be a little challenging, but nonetheless, children are children are children. I worked in a high school for many years, and I had the opportunity to work with Officer Montes. And when we saw children, sometimes if they're having a hard time, parents would come in, something had happened, children will accept that affection from parents. So I think we need to model that and try to continue. And what I've also seen, if the child grows up since they're little with affection, I think they're more likely to continue through middle and high school. I think it's a challenge when, because I even did it, when they get into middle and high school, we tend to think, they have their own thoughts, they have their own friends, they're a little bit older, they know, and yeah, they may know some things, but they're still learning. They're still learning and they're still growing. And I don't know about you all, but when I'm learning, sometimes if they tell me once, sometimes I'll remember, sometimes I'll forget. But if I'm told several times, you're more likely to remember it. So going back to the affection, it's just really important to give affection to children. That's how they're going to know that you care, and they'll feel that warmth from you. And again, all these things are, I'm sure, things that you are doing. It's not out of some special book. These are just little tips that I know that you guys are doing. And if you're not, then we can start incorporating some of them. Support your child's health and safety. Super important. In our country, unfortunately, because we are so busy all the time with a lot of responsibilities, with jobs, with taking care of family members, traveling, whatever it is, sometimes we have kind of moved away from eating meals as a family, like the family style, but it's really important. Now, I have a friend who has 3 children like Ms. Rivera, and they're all older, middle and high school. So what they try to do, at least once, maybe a couple times a week, try to have a meal together. Even if it's a breakfast, on the weekends, having a lunch, a barbecue, try to have a couple or several meals. Ideally, it'd be great every day, but again, due to today's busy schedule and people's different work schedules, just a lot of factors, sometimes it's not always possible. But even having some is better than having none. Also, give your child tips on how to stay safe. So, and we'll go into a little bit more of that on the future slides based on the age. Very important. I always talk about consistency. Routines are extremely, extremely important. Part of the routine should also be household chores or tasks. Based on the age level, it's going to be different for every child, right? But it's very important for kids to have routines, like to have regular bedtimes. Again, the consistency. They need to know that it's going to be the same time, the same way every night. There will be exceptions, I'm sure, if they're expected to go to sleep, again at 9 o'clock. If there's a show or something particular happening, maybe a birthday party with the family that you're going to stay a little bit later, that's okay. But for the most part, it's really important at all age levels that they have a regular bedtime. Chores or tasks at home help your child to learn responsibility, right? They're learning how to take direction from someone. They're learning how to navigate it. So if you say throw out the trash, they're going to think, well, should I tie it first? Should I just take it out and throw it in the trash? So we're also teaching them how to problem solve and then have that responsibility. Now, of course, when they're a little bit younger, like Ms. Lisa, your girls, you know, it would be just more basic things like picking up their toys, putting it in the bed, like maybe, you know, folding their blanket. So again, routines are really, really good and beneficial to children, and giving them some tasks, some chore, so they can learn, to begin to learn responsibility. Discipline, using appropriate discipline. Now, there's all kinds of research that talks about different types of discipline, different schools of thought. But when you look up the word discipline, what it derives from the word disciple, which means to teach. So discipline is when we're teaching our children something, whether it's appropriate behavior, whether it's how to read or write, we're teaching them something. That's where the word discipline comes from. And the discipline has to be age appropriate. So for example, if you have a little one that's 3-year-old, some people like to do the timeout, right? So some people will do the timeout. Some people will have a conversation with them. The discipline is different, and it's different for every child. And it's just different. And even if I have a 3-year-old and you have a 3-year-old, my child may respond very different to the timeout than your child. And it's okay. And all of this, there's not a book that's written that's clear. You know your children the best, and you know what works for them or not. So again, age-appropriate discipline like timeout. As they get older, going back to those natural consequences, if they do something like, for example, you tell them, shut off the phone, you're 18-year-old and you got shut off the phone at 11 o'clock. If they don't shut it off, the discipline that would be probably appropriate would be like, you know what? You didn't shut it off, so I'm gonna go ahead and take the phone for a couple of days, right? And also with that discipline, especially when they're older, they need to know what the expectation is. And we'll talk about that in the slides to come as well. So here are the positive parenting tips. And we're going to start with the preschoolers. And I believe, Ms. Felisa, your children are between this age. This is the age of 3 to 5. And all this is coming from research coming out of the CDC, right? So you're always welcome. It's a great resource to look up on the internet because they have tons of information about parenting. They have studies and research and just best practices. So going back, these are some tips for preschoolers. Read to your child. We talked about that in the past slides. Allow the child to help with simple chores. Encourage your child to play with other children. I think sometimes if you have like an only child, they tend to be very sharp, but they also tend to kind of just stay amongst themselves, maybe just interact with adults, which is good. But it's really important that they learn how to play with other children because that's where they're learning their boundaries, where one child starts, where one child ends, how to say yes or no. So in that interaction with other children, they're also learning how to be in the world that we live in, right? Be clear and consistent when you discipline your child. Going back to if they need to know that if this happens, this is going to happen. So, for example, if your child doesn't fold their bed, well, you know what? The discipline might be, well, you know what? You don't get to watch TV for 5 minutes or 2 minutes because they're younger. So whatever it is for you, and it'll probably be different for every child, just be consistent with your child in the discipline and also that it's age appropriate. Speak to your child in complete sentences and use grown-up words. Now, I don't know about you all, but in my family, we would always talk with the little ones like, oh, chulito, papacito, quieres papa. It's loving, it's endearing. There's nothing wrong with that. But a positive parenting tip is to help your child speak or begin to learn to speak in complete sentences, even if it's phrases, and using grown-up words. Because that's what they're building on. So when they start preschool, they go to kinder first. They're not really going to be talking like, "Ay, chili, papa." No. So we have to try to speak with them in complete sentences or phrases and just use their grown-up words. Help your child solve a problem when they are upset. When children, especially at this age, usually they get upset because they're overwhelmed with something. They're upset because they didn't get to go outside and play. Somebody took their toy. Sometimes they're frustrated because they're trying to talk to their sibling or other children and explain themselves like, you know, can I play with it or not? So all these, first and foremost, all these emotions, they don't really know what to do with them yet. They just feel it and they just express it. So we need to help them and talk it through and teach them how to figure out how to solve that problem. So if they're upset because the child took their toy, we need to help them problem solve and figure out what they can do, right? We need to acknowledge their feelings, but also what do they need to do? And this is, a lot of people say, you know, use your words, you know, tell Maya if you can have the toy back, you know, help them figure out what to say and how to say it. Give your child small and simple choices. So children need to, especially at this age, you can't give them more than maybe 2, maybe 3 choices. It's too overwhelming. Their brain's not developed to understand multiple choices. Now, as children get older, of course, high school students and things like that, the choices get a lot broader. But when they're little, they should be simple, small, 2, no more than 3. Limit your child's screen time. Now, this should be across the board for all age levels. But again, encouraging your child to read, to have conversations at this age, to play games, play outside, that helps them with their development. I read somewhere that nowadays children are so much on the screen and screen time that their ability to problem solve, their ability to be creative, it starts getting limited. When you read a book, you're imagining things, right? You're reading Little Red Riding Hood. She went in the forest and saw the grandma, and they're picturing it, right? They're picturing what that looks like. So it's important for us to limit that screen time so they can use that creativity, so they can use that little muscle brain, right? Because it's really easy for them to just kind of, you know, sit and watch Little Red Riding Hood instead of reading about it, watching it, but there's no creativity. They're just kind of absorbed. So we also have to be careful with that. Watch your child when they're playing outside. Teach your child how to be safe around strangers, right? People always talk about stranger danger and things like that. You know, teach your child that it's okay if an adult asks them to do something and they don't want to do it. You know, you need to start talking and having those conversations with your little ones and what they need to do. If someone's coming up to you, you don't feel comfortable, then you need to let somebody know. So I think I have a question. Ms. Michelle, can you read the question in the chat? I'm sorry. Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, does anyone have questions? My boss over here is asking, does anyone have any questions? I know this is a lot of information. So please feel free to unmute yourself or place it in the chat. Okay. And then again, you're going to see this point in all the different ages is, again, when possible, try to eat meals with your child. Middle childhood, this is anywhere from 6 to 8. One of the things that we as parents need to do is to recognize and acknowledge your child's accomplishments by showing affection. They're still at that age between 6 and 8 that they still want that pat in the back, that hug, the besito, right? When they're little, ooh, they need it all the time, right? They're developing and growing. But believe it or not, 6 to 8-year-olds, they still need it, and they need to be recognized and told that you did a great job, right? We all need it, even adults, but it's really important also with children between the ages of 6 and 8. Ask your child to help with household tasks. We talked about that, right? Giving them the responsibility. That also helps them problem solve. So it's really important that they do have a chore or a task that they have to do at home. Encourage your child to help people, right? To help people in need and to be respectful. And all this goes back to empathy. And we're encouraging our children to help others. You know, they see a friend at the school and they fall down or they drop their book. we need to encourage them to help people like that, because that also builds empathy. And that's just an important trait to have as a human being. Help your child make their own goals. It's really easy, and it was easy for me to say, this is what you need to do. I need you to get this A, or I need you to play this sport, and I need you to do well in this sport. And I would like you to make 2 goals every game. Well, guess what? Those are our goals. We need to help them to think and to develop their own goals at this age, right? This is very important, because this is helping them, and it's building on what they're moving forward to as they get older, right? Setting goals. And also not only just setting goals, but making sure they're realistic. I remember once a student who was an average student and, average football player, and they could be anything they want, but they were saying, like in middle school, like, I'm going to be this great football player. I'm going to make millions. They're thinking all these things, which it's real for some kids, right? But the likelihood is, it's very hard. It's very challenging, right? But the important thing is to, help them set smaller goals. Okay, we're going to play football, this semester or this year, and then just kind of grow on that goal, right? Make it realistic, especially because, in my opinion, education is really important. I think that should be first and foremost. That's just a little side note on IRMA logic. Help your child to learn to be patient. For example, if they need to do a chore, they can't go outside. They have to finish their chore, do what parents are asking, and then they can move on to the next activity. So helping your child to learn that they have to wait. And it's okay for children to wait. Again, even like I said, when you're cooking and your child says, Mom, it's easy. You can just say, you know what? Can you give me a second, right? So I'm going to click on here because I think there's some comments in the chat. Okay, Ms. Acosta. If you can let me know, Ms. Acosta, what are the ages of your children? If you can type it, if you're comfortable, if you can type it in the chat or unmute yourself. Okay, your youngest is 15. Good. This is good to know. Then I know where to emphasize on which slides during the presentation. So going back to helping your child learn how to be patient, give your child clear rules and follow through with them. And if you notice, this is kind of like a common theme through all the age levels as we're going, all the different ages. It's really important to be able to set the rules so they know what to expect. There's no mystery in it. So that's important. I have Ms. Rivera says, mi hija más chica tiene 12 y ha estado muy estresada y irritable. Ella va a YWLA, 6th grade. So Ms. Rivera is saying that her daughter, the youngest, is 12, has been very stressed and very irritable. And she goes to YWLA, she's a 6th grader. So that is a very demanding school, which is good. It's very rigorous. So I can see where she would be very stressed and irritable. And we'll talk in a few slides how we can help them work through that. So again, using discipline instead of punishment, right? And there's different schools of thoughts. I would never tell you how to discipline your child, but remember, to discipline means to teach. So whatever it is, it's best if we teach them because we don't want to trample their little spirits either, right? So the next one is talk to your child about how to ask for help, right? How to ask an adult for help, how to ask the teacher for help. That's really important. I know sometimes, like for me, I was a very, very shy little kid. Like I didn't like people look at me. I was just with my mom. People would look at me. I would look at my mom. I was very, very shy. And it was hard growing up because I didn't learn that skill, like how to ask people for help. I would just ask my mom. But I made sure that when I had my child, that I taught him that you need to open up, you need to ask, you need to talk. And again, you can be shy and still ask for help. You don't have to be this outgoing person, but we got to teach our children. And the other way how they can learn to ask for help is we also need to ask for help as parents. You guys are superheroes, but like I said earlier, we're not expected to do everything perfectly with every one of our child's that it's humanly not possible. But when we ask for help, whether it's from a relative or even from your child, can you help me take the trash out because I can't do this? You're teaching them, you're modeling that asking for help is okay. And that's important. Supervise your child when they're doing risky activity, if they're climbing something, skateboarding. They're still young where, they still need to be supervised, right? Limit your child's food and drink with excessive sugar or salt. And that's really all age levels. Just kind of monitor. I remember reading one time about Gatorade. People, like sports, when you're playing sports, it's a lot of Gatorade to rehydrate, which is good, but it does have like a lot of sugar. So just kind of be mindful of what your child are drinking, because also the intake of sugar and what they eat can also affect their mood. So I know Ms. Shivetta had mentioned something about that. Now, middle childhood, 9 through 11. Talk to your child about the challenges they may be having. At this age, especially around 11, they're going into 12, almost like the little tweens, right? The preteens. They're probably already having some challenges because they are looking for their peers to accept them. They're looking at other boys or girls and trying to see where they measure up. So that's when some of this is starting to happen. So if they're having any kind of challenges with that, it's important to have those conversations, right? Talk to your child about their friends and all their accomplishments, what they're doing in school, what they're doing well. And again, right now with friends at this age, friends are starting to become important to them. Ask them to continue to be involved. You continue to be involved in your child's school, but them as well to be involved. And again, it goes back to when they're little, we tend to do a lot of things with them because we know that they don't know how to navigate it. But even 9 to 11-year-olds, they're still learning to navigate. So we need to continue to be involved in their education, with their teacher, if they're playing sports, church activities. We need to encourage them to continue to be connected, and us as well, right? Help your child to develop a sense of right and wrong, right? Going back to those boundaries and leading by example as a role model. Help them to develop a sense of responsibility with household tasks, saving and spending money. So when my son, his name's Q, when he was little, I don't know if this was right or wrong, but if he had a good grade, we would give him like $2. If he got a B, it was $2. He got an A, $3. And so through that, what we used to try to teach him was how to save that money, how to spend it. If you do A, B can happen. But you have to do A before B happens. We really tried our hardest not to kind of reward them or give them spending money or things unless the task and the work was done. And I would always tell him, son, I don't get paid because I have a job. I have to go to work first, then I get paid. So it's the same thing with them. We need to start to teach them the sense of responsibility that you have to do A and then B will happen, the consequence, whether it's positive or negative. It's really important that they do have a task or some kind of chore in the home. And then, like I said, if they have, if you give them chore money or whatever grandma, grandpa, Theo gives them, $10 for their birthday, start having those conversations. Like, what are you gonna do with the $10? Are you gonna save it? If you're gonna spend it, what are you gonna spend it on? What's cheaper? If you wanna buy this shirt, is this cheaper than this one? So we need to start having those conversations about money. Meet their families and your children and their friends. So like 9 and 11, you're still meeting families. When you get to the next group, the 12 through preteens, like at that time, they don't want you talking with their friends' parents, right? But it's important, always having those conversations. So meeting your child's friends and their families is very important. Talk to your child about what to do when people are not kind or when they're disrespectful. And unfortunately, we live in a world where it's imperfect and we have imperfect people. I'm one of them. So it's going to be really important to help your child understand that when people are kind or disrespectful, what they need to do, right? Uh, you don't want to encourage your child while they're disrespectful to you, then you be disrespectful to them. But we need to teach them and talk like, how are we going to navigate that, right? If they're being disrespectful, what can you do? Can you walk away? Can you tell a teacher? You can definitely come and talk to me and we can talk about it. So again, having those conversations with your child at this age is very, very important. Setting clear rules and plans for your child when they're at home. Usually around this age, if parents are working or have other responsibilities outside the home, children sometimes, when they were going in class, when they're in school, they would walk home, right? And that's okay, but also setting those clear rules like, this is what you can do in the house and this is what I need you to do. I know I keep talking about my son, but that's my reference point. I remember he was in high school, took the bus coming home, and some reason I got there early. It's about 5 o'clock. He should have already been home. So when I got home, I'm looking around, he's not around. But where is he? Where is he? I look outside. And as a parent, I'm getting upset because I'm thinking something happened. Like, what happened? I don't see him. The bus should have already passed. And then I see him across the street, just running across the street. I'm like, what is he doing? And then I'm waiting around for him to open the door. I don't see him. But boy, let me tell you, we had a good conversation. I said, where were you? And and what he had those clear rules and the plan of what it was. He didn't follow it, but it's really important to let your child know what's expected, right? You get off the bus, you need to come straight home. When you get off the bus, you can talk 5 minutes with your neighbor, but then you need to come home. So again, setting those rules, the plan, the expectations when they're alone at home. It's very important. Keep television out of children's room and limits screen time. I always encourage parents to do that, and it's a challenge. And I think a lot of children do have those electronics in their bedroom. Not saying it's wrong or bad, but it's important that we limit that so they can have more time to interact with you, to read books, to study, and have other activities, just not being isolated. And what you'll see too, as they get a little bit older, especially the preteens and teens, a lot of more, like Ms. Rivera said, the irritability, maybe the stress, they're just in the rooms watching TV. It's really hard to be able to notice if anything's happening, if they're just in the room, right? So the challenging times, the young teens, 12 to 14, this is where it gets fun, right? For those of you who have older children, it's going to be really important to be very honest with your children and be direct, right? Especially when it's sensitive things to them, like appearance or making friends. And sometimes at this age, especially around 14, some of the girls and the boys may start liking other children, right? And maybe being a little sensitive about, they talked to me or they didn't talk to me, or they were supposed to text me, they didn't text me. I'm in love, I'm not in love, all those things. We need to have open and honest, direct conversations with our children about sensitive topics. And even though we might not think it's important, but in their mind, it's very important. So sometimes they come home and say, oh, I'm in love. For us to say, no, you're not in love. You don't know what that means. You can do it that's honest and direct, but how can we give warmth and have those conversations and say, yeah, it sounds like you feel like you're in love, but what does love mean to you, right? What does that look like? And then you can share with them, this is what love is, or this is the way I see love. So having those conversations are very important, especially around the love relationships at this age. Listen to their opinions and acknowledge their feeling. Going back to, for them, if a girlfriend or boyfriend doesn't text, it's like, it's over. They're crying, they're upset. I don't want to go to school anymore. We know they're going to go to school, but it's okay. Acknowledge like their feeling and help them identify that feeling. So are you feeling upset? Are you feeling disappointed? Are you feeling sad, angry? Help them start acknowledging and even them labeling their feelings and having those conversations. Help your child make healthy choices, encourage them to make their own decisions, right? That's really important. Show interest in their life and get to know their friends, just like the younger, the slide that we did prior to this. Be clear with your young teen about the goals and expectations. Oh my God, I'm getting a message that we're almost done here. So let me run a little bit quickly through some of these slides. Be clear about, again, your teen's goals and expectations. Talk to them about the dangers of alcohol, drugs, and just risky behavior. There's a lot of peer pressure that's starting at this age. Have those conversations with your child. Talk with your child about the importance of having friends and those friends having positive interests, right? You want them to hang around kids who are in athletics or in academics, things that are positive, that are doing work in the community or volunteering at the church, at the community center. Have them and encourage them to have those kinds of friends with positive interests. Again, setting clear rules and encourage family meals. Teenagers, 15 through 17. Talk to your teens about any concerns they may have and pay attention to any change in their behavior. Ms. Rivera mentioned she mentioned to us that her child is irritable. She's starting to see her stress. That's good that you're seeing those behaviors. And I'm sure you're talking to your child about it. And the other resource is contact your school counselor. Let them know, hey, I'm kind of seeing these things with my daughter. I'm worried. What should I do? What are my next steps? So that's great that you're noticing that change in their emotion and their behavior. Show interest in their activities and encourage them to participate. Compliment them and praise them on their efforts and accomplishments. And right now at this age, it's very much about what they look like, how they dress. For whatever reason, that's developmentally where they're at. Spend time with them and show them affection, even though you think that they don't like it or want it, they do. But again, every child is different, and you can navigate through that depending on what you think is appropriate, right? Respect your teen's opinions without lessening their opinion. So they might have a totally different opinion than yours, but we're going to try to encourage them to have their opinion and not say that's a wrong opinion. That's how when we do that, we kind of diminish their ability to, be able to make up their own mind and come to their own conclusions. So we just need to help them navigate. Have conversations with your teens to encourage problem solving and offer them support. Discuss and make plans with your team when they have difficult situations. Again, the peer pressure at this age is very strong, especially now with the internet and social media platforms. I mean, they're getting messages all day long, all kinds of messages. So we need to have those conversations with them to say, what are you going to do if somebody is offering you alcohol? What are you going to do if somebody sends you a picture that's inappropriate? I mean, these things are happening in our society today. So we need to have those conversations and have them make a plan. For example, when my son was in high school and finally a senior year, we'd let him go to a party, but we would tell him, if there's alcohol, if there's drugs, if you're not comfortable, you call us. Like, that was the plan. You don't have to say anything to us, but just call us. We'll pick you up and we won't ask anything. And that happened a couple of times. So we need to help and make a plan with them, what to do when those situations arise. Discuss how to behave respectfully in public. Respect your teen's privacy. And encourage family meals. That privacy is a challenge for some of us. I know it was for me, because it's like, where is the boundary? Because if we're seeing behaviors that are worrying us, I don't know if I'm going to respect it. I have to kind of think about it. But for the most part, we have to give them their sense of independence and separateness from us, because that's how they're learning and growing to become an adult. In summary, if anything we get out of this whole presentation is, we need positive parenting. We need to catch our child doing the good things and praise them. I know sometimes it's really easy to say, oh, you didn't do your chores, or oh, you didn't listen to me, or oh, you're fighting with your sister or your brother. We always tend to catch them when things aren't good, right? They also need to know when things are good. You know what, mijo? Thank you. You took out the trash. You know what, mijo? Or mija, thank you. You started dinner, if they're older. So catch them doing those good things. And it goes back to positive reinforcement. If you're catching them doing those good things and you're giving them praise, the likelihood of them continuing that positive behavior is very high. Give your child meaningful jobs at home and give them a lot of praise. When giving your child instructions or making a request, use kind words, tones, and gestures, right? Spend time with your child on activities that they like. I know sometimes I would want to do things like, oh, I want to go to the zoo, it's fun. And my son was like, that's not fun to me. I'd rather go to Peter Piper's and play video games. So we also have to kind of give and take and realize, try to spend time on the activities that they would like. So Officer Montes says he arrived after I started the presentation. Wow, your son is 16, junior, and Luna is 13. So you also have preteen and teen. Great topic. Be active with your kids, monitor their phone computer usage. This is Officer Montes' suggestion, and meet their friends' parents. Exchange your contact information. And I hope you don't mind Officer Montes, but he is an officer with our school district. So he has a wealth of experience in working with children at all ages, and he's been doing this quite a bit. So thank you for your feedback, Officer Montes. And then with that, spend family time with your children and have warm, positive, loving interactions. Help your child find the solutions to their problems at home, help them brainstorm. And then always ask your child if they're concerned or they're worried about anything. Ask them what their goals, what are their aspirations, what do they think about certain things. This is, again, helping them develop as a young person to be a productive adult. All this information that I just went over, these last two slides, is from the National Institute of Health, which is under the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. I want to end with this, and I love these quotes. So take it to heart. There is no such thing as a perfect parent. So just be a real one. Be honest, be direct, be loving. Are we going to do it right all the time perfectly? No, there's no way. We're not perfect human beings. But let's just be real parents, right? Show our children, even when we are sad or upset, it's okay to let them see those emotions, because then they'll know how to navigate. You know, mom or dad's crying, or tia abuelita's crying, they cry and then they talk about it. Well, you know what? When I cry, I can talk about it. So again, we're not expected to be perfect parents. We'll never be perfect parents, but we can be real parents. And lastly, and I love this Carly, the mom, y'all need to look her up. She said, you will never look back at your life and think, I spend too much time with my kids. We'll never think that. It's before you know it, like I tell you, my son's 25, it's like, where did the years go? So you'll never look back and think you didn't spend enough, you spend too much time with your kid. There's never enough time, but you try to make the time as best as you can, right? So with that, I want to thank you for joining us. I'm sorry it went a little bit longer. If you have any questions, we can take them now. I don't mind staying a few more minutes after the session. My email, if you have any questions or you want to know more about Family Power Hour, resources that are in our campuses to help your children be successful, whether it's through academics, through counseling, whatever it is, let me know. We will get you an answer. We're here to offer parent support. You can reach me at IHES@SAISD, and my office number is 210-554-2245. Please feel free to contact me anytime, any day. Just give me at least 24 hours to respond to you, but I will respond to you. So if you want to take a screenshot of that with your phone, if you want to write it down, please feel free to do so. And with that, I'll go ahead and take some questions. And I think I have a few comments here. Officer Montes, I believe strongly in the second quote. Gonna say that one, good. And then Ms. Michelle also put a link, and that is to our Family Power Hours. We have these Family Power Hours. We're gonna have them all year on different topics. We have things on Canvas, Frontline, assessments. So please take a look, and you're welcome to join all these sessions. And again, these sessions are being recorded, and we put them on our on-demand library, so you'll be able to access this if you feel like, oh my gosh, I think I forgot something. Give us a few days, and we'll put it up on our YouTube channel, and you'll be able to review them whenever you would like. Ms. Cadena says, great presentation, so much important information. All right, thank you, Ms. Cadena. All right. So I'm going to stop sharing the screen, so I want to see your beautiful faces. There we go. Any questions? It's 3:03, and I apologize I went over, but I'm very passionate about your children, and I've been doing this 18 years. And I just think children are just the biggest, best blessing that we could have ever received. And And it's our responsibility to do right by them and help them become the best adult that they can be, right? So, Julissa, you have any questions? Or Officer Montes, or Ms. Rivera, or Ms. Acosta?
No, just thank you so much for doing this. It's really helpful.
I'm glad. Awesome.
Is there going to be a link for the survey like last week, or how will we find that?
Ms. Reyes said she will. She put it in the chat, but she said she'll email it, correct? No, I'll put it. Oh, okay, she put it in the chat. Ms. Rivera, de nada. Encantada que pudo participar con nosotros y la espero, si Dios quiere, en otra plática, cuando guste. Okay, so Ms. Michelle put the link on there, so if you can fill that out. And see. All righty. If there's no other questions or comments, I really sincerely want to thank you for being with us today. I love seeing familiar faces. I hope you can join us at future ones. Don't forget my email. I'm going to put it again in the chat. So if you have any questions or comments or any kind of information you would like to know about SAISD in your child's school, we will get it for you. And with that, I think somebody had said, Ms. Rivera said, claro que sí. Gracias a usted. All right. Guys, have a great afternoon. Officer Montes, good seeing you. Julissa, good seeing you. Ms. Acosta, have a good one. We'll see you soon.